Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness. We are presented by Yes Realty Partners and the Yes Team Realtors, live across Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. We hope the Memorial Day treated you well, the 3-day weekend treated you well. Here's the beautiful thing about this week. One of them, the sun is shining, it's gorgeous outside, and folks, it's a short week. It's already Tuesday. It's Tuesday.
That actually feels like it's got pressure.
Yeah, you have a lot more work.
5 days of work in 4 days.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. But you guys work around the clock anyway. You guys are realtors, right?
You have to always bring that up.
I do have to bring that up. That voice right there is the distinguished, the dapper Quinton Beckham. Judah Wickhauer, let's go to the studio camera, and then Hollywood Squares as we welcome our friend and two new friends here on the I Love CVille Network. Deandra, I love your spirit so much. I love the whoop whoop this early in the morning. My friend, I will get out of the way. The show is yours here.
Well, welcome. We sort of talked through everything about who you are and where you came from, so if people have listened to that prelude, they've got it. But I wanted to ask you guys just, where are you from, how long have you been here, and what sort of led you to decide to go into investment properties? And Nikki, I'm going to start with you because you're the realtor, so we know your life revolves around real estate.
That it does.
And so that might be an easier start.
Okay, so where I'm from, well, I live in Charlottesville. I don't know about from, I'm from a lot of places. I'm originally from Florida.
Okay.
So,
cool.
When I first landed in Charlottesville, I didn't know it existed. I know I shouldn't say that out loud, but it's true. So, yeah, I just didn't know, and now I can't imagine living anywhere else. Real estate has always been something that I thought was going to be a solution for me, period. Like, I've always known that, and I, too, was someone who thought that I might not be able to achieve that without a lot of money. So I sought out to figure out how to pull it off anyway, and here I am.
Excellent, excellent. And then Deandra.
Hello, so I'm Deandra. I am originally from Harlem, so the big city, but I always knew my spirit was country. So I decided I wanted to go to UVA thinking I was going to come to a one stoplight town and cows in the road, and I got here and I was like, oh, this is not what I thought.
Oops.
So I got here in 2009 to go to school and have been around since. And I got into real estate when I tried to get my first full-time job with all the student loan debt, with all the credit card debt. And I was like, this can't be the job I'm supposed to work for 40 years. This can't be what my mom said that it's supposed to be what I went to school for. And I remember reading a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure many of you have heard the book, have seen the book.
Love that book.
It was about passive income and that there are other ways to make money without your presence. And I figured, it can't get worse, right? Like this lifestyle can't get worse. And that's what got me into real estate.
Interesting. So a lot of people, I know, and I suffer from this time to time too. It's hard to make that jump from where I am today to where I want to be. All that ground in between seems unimaginable. So I'm curious, Nikki, I imagine that you had particular lifestyle factors that made you want to be a real estate agent. This is a job I can do and do well without having to give up A, B, C, D, E or worry about X, Y, Z. What did that look like when you first got into real estate? Are you okay? I'm asking a semi-personal question without even asking your permission first.
I can totally answer that. The short answer is I am a special kind of crazy. Period.
I feel the same.
And I've proven so in all the other things I've done. From bus driver, yes, for school full of your children. I love them all. Barista, business owner, as a bookkeeper. It's just, I wanted things that had potential for me. I wanted to be able to go somewhere with something, and real estate has really been that for me.
And I know you have a lot of hobbies that are important to you. If you follow Nikki around on Facebook, you'll see pictures of her with a guitar. You'll see pictures of her on a motorcycle. There's the things that you like to do in your side life are not necessarily quietly knitting in the basement in the wee hours of the night. They're a little bit time consuming.
Yeah.
And so was that part of the factors that played in?
Definitely. My goal has kind of been, and still is, to figure out how to build a life and a lifestyle while being able to create income. There's the version of life where I could just go live off grid and, raise my own food, like you mentioned, in my backyard. But that's not really what I want to do. I'm not opposed to it, but like
Biofuel for the motorcycle.
Oh, totally. Oh
Yeah.
no, I have plans for a biodiesel vehicle. I'm sure somewhere on my laptop because those are
Yeah.
things I look into. But I'd rather be able to run around and do my music and motorcycling and roller skating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to roller skate. I love real estate.
We're talking.
I love mechanisms like owner-seller financing. I love mechanisms like leverage.
Yes.
I love additional rooftops and additional streams coming in at the first of the month. I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm hoping we're going down that direction, my
We're
friend
getting
QB.
there. We're getting there, yeah. And then, Deandra, when you and I met, your life circumstance was pretty dramatically different than it is today. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, for sure. So, as much as some people got into it for the love of real estate, I got into it because I was broke. Like, I just needed to lower my housing expense. Like, that was my goal from jump. I'm like, I'm paying $750 for a one-bedroom apartment. I can't live like this if there's another option. So my first.
So that was when you were renting?
That's when I was renting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was paying $750 for a one-bedroom. I had a pit bull that was listed as something else on my application.
I think it was an under 30-pound Chihuahua.
Bull terrier,
Yeah.
maybe, something that wasn't on the restricted breeds. But it was like, I can't live like this. I don't like my neighborhood. I don't like where I am. I'm too far from work. So my first house was just about, can I get the price down? Can I save a little bit more on just housing, and maybe that'll trickle over to other places? And then I realized I could get it real down, and that's when the fun started.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, you had $3,000, I think, from a tax return.
Between tax return and like an extra loan that like kicked in after I graduated. So I had all little money saved up, paid off some credit card debt, but my first property was $800 out of pocket for a 2-bedroom, and it brought my housing from $750 to $530. So I had this 2-bedroom that if I was just by myself, I'd be paying $530 a month. And then I was like, what if I get a roommate?
Dude, that's a huge difference, though. The
Yeah.
$750 to $530 just by itself without the roommate is a huge delta.
Exactly.
I mean,
And in
because
a
that's like
better
a cell
place.
phone and an electric payment.
For sure. It actually was my student loan payment.
There you go.
So all of a sudden it was like, with that same payment I was making, now I can pay for housing and student loans if I live alone. So in the worst case scenario, I can still cover my bills by myself. And then I got a roommate who paid $600. So in his world,
You gave him a
amazing,
steal.
right? He's getting $600 for a 2-bedroom backyard parking space, not in a complex, and I get to live for free. And then all of a sudden became my car payment, my insurance payment, like all these other things. I was like,
So if you didn't, so I'm curious, if you didn't walk into this thinking, I'm going to buy these houses and cover all my bills, was there a point when you got the roommate where you were like, oh, I could do this again?
yes, absolutely. Because all of a sudden, housing went away. So for me saying I can just save $200, I went to now I can save $700 because I'm no longer paying for housing at all. And he wanted extra cable, which meant I was like, well, you take internet. That's your thing. And I was like, what a life I get to live. Because he wanted NFL field pass and go for it, friend. And
The red zone. I like you.
That's right. So, and then it was like, well, of course I could do this again. And especially because realizing I was working. And so I coach people about how to get real estate. And some of my clients, when they asked, well, what were you making? And I was like, my first job was making $28,000 a year, killing it. So, and then his reaction right now, if y'all could see it.
No.
That
was me.
I know, it was honest.
Yeah.
You were like, Jesus Christ.
Dude, my first job out of UVA, I was making $10 an hour, $20,000 a year. And I had the villas at Southern Ridge. My mortgage was $1,005 a month. HOA was $156. I invited 2 buddies in at $400 a pop. It was a 3-bedroom, $800 each. Hooked them up. They were like, "You are the god,
Yes,
Jerry.
that's right.
You
I
are
will
the
do
god."
everything I can to keep you happy so I don't get kicked out. But a lot of my clients look at me like, that's insane. And I'm like, yeah, I had $28,000. That was my income. Then I had $30,000 in student loan debt. I had a $12,000 car payment because someone let me buy a car without any support. I had $5,000 credit card debt. And they're like, how did you? And it was like, I had the money saved and started. And when we first started looking, there wasn't anything there. And Quinton was like, just wait.
Well, that's some
Be
impressive
patient.
house
You were right.
Be patient.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like your financial circumstances, Nikki, have changed between when you got into real estate as an agent and to today?
So, yes. And a lot of that is because of purchasing real estate. Like truly, and so truly, my backup plan has always been worst case scenario, because I'm kind of like that. I like to plan for worst case scenario. I could always live out of my car if I had to, right? Truly, like for real. If you had to.
Respect.
This is why I buy nice cars.
Respect.
I always have an SUV. There's room. Join a gym. You can shower. Right. Worst case scenario. But now, worst case scenario, I have 2 properties that both have value. I have equity in 2 properties. One of them is income producing. The other, really, if I needed, I could either sell it and make bank, and then live in my car.
It's a savings
very
account for you.
Or, buy something else or rent, whatever, right? Or I could rent it out. And again, it would be crazy wild income producing. Yeah.
So I promised the 2 of them that we wouldn't go deep into statistics, but I do want to share some statistics
Please.
about Charlottesville.
Please.
Because I think every time we look at somebody that has bridged these sort of gaps, we find reasons to believe that can't be us. Ooh. And that record plays in our head. And so if you think about what you were making, you talked about what you were making, we can make a guess about what you were making.
$10 an hour. Literally.
Yes. Now, it was some years ago, but maybe not that many years ago. And yours was only 6. Mm-hmm. Only 6 years ago.
Mine was, yours was 2010? 2015. Mine was 2005.
So the per capita income in Charlottesville is $38,328. Mm-hmm. So everybody in the room, including me, underneath that median income when we came to Charlottesville, and per capita, the median income is $59,000. 50% of everybody makes less than that, 50% makes more. And so significantly under the median income. And so I just kind of wanted to point out, if you feel like that is your limitation, and certainly there's a floor limit somewhere, but we haven't found it yet in this room. So there's a floor limit somewhere, but if you feel like, well, I'm in the lower 50%, I just want you to know we're sitting in a room with people where that was not true. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily simple, and it required a certain level of commitment, but it was not true. Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you feel when you did the first, this is truly going to be an investment property, I'm not going to live in it, I'm going to rent in it?
Terrified.
Is that a scary process?
So for me, it actually wasn't as scary because the property I bought next was next door. So it was I could see it, I could see the people,
Smart.
I get to still choose who's in here. I'm fully invested, and I can see if someone sneaks in the dog. I can see if someone does anything that would not be on the lease. So it wasn't as terrifying. And then my dad, who is a pit bull in and of himself, was willing to come down and help me at any point. So I had the support of my family, but I wasn't too far away from it, which I think gave me a little bit of peace. I know people get worried about if I'm moving to another city, if I'm moving to another state. But that's, I would say, for me personally, why it wasn't as stressful.
And how about you?
Well, see, that's where me being a special kind of crazy comes in. I was thrilled. So not only was I thrilled, but when I was, my house, my first investment property, I just closed at the end of February of this year.
Right.
In the middle of a pandemic, in case you were wondering.
In the middle of the market insanity.
In the middle of insanity. On a foreclosure property, which there aren't really a whole lot of them out there.
Right.
Where I was competing with a lot of people before the competition was this heavy.
Wow.
So, again, a little crazy, right? But I was thrilled. And part of that crazy is that I actually had to get my financing, I had to have a signed lease for a certain amount of money 2 weeks before my closing. So I was going into this knowing, okay, I have to really make stuff happen. Yeah. And for me, that drives me.
How did you rent the place before owning it?
Very carefully?
Yeah. Please educate. I sincerely want to know that. If I want to know that, they want to know that.
Well, so it's, you put it out there. You make sure that the seller's okay with what you're putting out there. And you make sure that people understand what they're signing up for. If something happened before closing and it fell through, then we would all be out of luck.
Right.
So we were kind of in it together. They were also buying a property that I had permission to show, but it wasn't exactly in the same condition that they were going to rent it.
Sure.
There was a whole week of my life was this property, and I have never been so sore from going up and down ladders and painting walls in my life. That was my gym, and I don't normally do that.
Awesome.
So...
One of the points that I want to get back to later, just to underline, is we are all in this together, because I think that's an important thing when we talk about the agreement between a landlord and a tenant and what that means. Because I think that sometimes gets lost in the conversation. If you go to your guys' social media pages, you have all of these videos of you guys working on these investment properties.
Me too.
Like, there's no contractors, there's nobody in a vest with a name stenciled on it. There might be your dad, but mostly it's you guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, the stereotype is that you're these two young women. How would you manage a 12-unit apartment building with a septic and a well? How would you repair wood flooring and electrical and change out fixtures? And yet there's videos of you guys doing it. What was that like? Did you have to educate yourself? Did you really just do it all by yourself? How'd this work?
So I will say for me, there's two things that help. The first was YouTube, right? YouTube will teach you all the things. If you will just follow a lot of the steps
It's
on
not
YouTube,
just for bomb making.
It's not just.
No.
You will follow
Everything's on YouTube.
Everything's
Yeah,
on YouTube.
yeah.
And like changing light fixtures, changing a sink, pulling out a toilet, like all those things, if it's a simple fix, is pretty much on YouTube that you could figure it out. The second was following a contractor around the first time. So like, I didn't know how to change a toilet, and YouTube was there, it was too confusing, so I hired someone to change it and watched the whole time, had my phone the whole time, asking questions. They're like, can you, and I'm like, no, I want to know how to do this, so I don't have to call you back. And the real reason I did that was because if I don't, then prices have to go up.
No doubt.
To compensate for that, right?
Right.
I can change it, a toilet is $80, I can change a toilet myself, and I don't have to raise rent. But if I'm paying $350 to a plumber every time I have to change a toilet, that has to come from somewhere. And with some of my units renting as low as like $400 a month, where's that coming from? You know? So by doing that myself, I was able to keep costs low, become more handy. And like you said, Nikki, so I have, in my complex, I have an apartment that I don't rent just for when I have to spend the night fixing things. Just so when I have to crash because like this is going to be a 12-hour
Is that
job.
true?
Yeah, I have an
Really?
apartment. So the complex is 22 units. I have one of the studios that I just don't rent. And that's where I crash. When
So
I
what's
have
the market rent on that studio? 800?
$325 to
Okay.
$350.
Okay.
So one fix pays for that.
Yeah.
Which is why we're able to do that, right? One toilet repair pays for the month, and there's more than one toilet repair to do a month. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it pays for itself, but I have that space so that I can sleep there when I have longer hours.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sort of like your office with a cot.
Yeah, for sure. And also, one of the reasons I have to have it is because it's 2 hours away from my house. So it's not like if it was down the street again, I'd just go home. I'm not crazy, you know, I'd stay there. But because it's 2 hours away, that drive is hell and can be really rough if I don't crash that night there.
Interesting. How did you handle learning how to, what did you have to think about and learn as you took care of this property and you set it up for a tenant?
Okay, so first, I'm gonna second YouTube. All the things. But also, disclaimer, when things go wrong and you're doing it on your own, you also still have to deal with the water damage if you mess something up. Or,
Right.
Don't play with electricity
Yeah.
because it can kill you. Any video you see where I'm playing with electricity, I either say it in the video or I try to remember to make a comment. Because I'm like, some people really just shouldn't mess with electricity. Like, know yourself, truly. And maybe don't start with electricity. Maybe start with some paint, some sanding.
Yeah.
Work your way up to changing out toilets. It's so much easier than you think, and not all the videos on YouTube are right. They're just not. So watch a bunch of them. Maybe have a friend. Personally, I have a Kevin. He's a very good friend.
Everyone
He
needs
knows
a
how to
Kevin.
Everyone needs a Kevin.
I have a
cannot
Mark.
even tell you. So yes,
I have a
Mark
Judah.
is equivalent to my. Everybody needs a Kevin. Seriously. And so he's helped me a lot. He loves to teach me. If I need him to do it, he can. But most of the time, he's going to go out of his way to teach me how to do it because he knows I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to do it myself.
Interesting.
I love it. Let's give some props. So people are giving Nikki props. Matthew Fielding says hello. Nancy Taylor giving you props. Kirby Robinson giving you props. Nikki Herring giving you props. Michael Lyle is giving you some props right now. If you guys have any questions or comments that you want to get out to the panel, put them in the comment section and we will relay them out there. Folks are asking, Elena Mangione says hello. Kathy, is it Yursik?
Yurick?
Uric is giving you some props right now. A lot of folks want to talk financing. Richard O'Brien says hello. Maybe can we go down the financing
So let's
route?
go down financing.
Yeah.
You brought up 2 points. You brought up seller financing, and you brought up
I did
leverage.
mine.
And I think it a little bit harder in the competitive market, but there's still opportunity for seller financing. You found a foreclosure that you competed on, and you got a mortgage for. I participated with you on at least 2, 3 that you bought from seller financing.
Yeah.
Am I even underestimating at
No,
this point?
two for seller financing.
2 for seller financing. How was that? How'd that work?
Ooh, so the first seller financing came from someone who had sold me a property beforehand. So he had sold me a property, everything went super smooth. He liked that I was able to keep his tenants and not have to transition anyone out. And then he kind of approached, well, my realtor, Kathleen, who worked under you, was like, hey, why don't we approach him to see if he's willing to do seller financing, some other things, because he's trying to drop a lot of these smaller properties. And we approached him, and he was like, sure. And
So this was an apartment complex then? Condo complex?
So what I bought from him was a duplex, and
Okay.
then he had a bunch of condos that he was trying to drop off. And it was like, okay. And he said, will you buy like 3 or 4? And I was like, no, what is this? And I tell you, my parents bring that up regularly, that I only took one. They're like, what were you thinking? When I was like, I was young, I didn't know. But we did seller financing, and it was great. I had the property for a year, and I would have kept it. The reason I sold it was to buy my first apartment building, because I was like, I
remember
want the
this one.
cash, I want the space. So that's why I sold that. And then the most recent one was earlier in January, where the guy who sold me the first apartment complex was like, do you want the second? And I was like, well, like financing wise, I can't get a commercial loan right now. I just got another commercial loan. I need to settle, because I also just left my job last year. My taxes need to settle. And he was like, I own it. And I was like, well,
Yeah, let's figure it out.
let's talk about it.
Yeah. So what
do
was
you
your
wanna do?
collateral then for that one?
For that second one, I had to put down 30 grand.
Okay.
So a complex, it was 12 unit, 12 one bedrooms. We bought it for 165. I had to put down 30, so a little under 20%. And I pay interest only, because that was the cleanest way to make the payment.
Yeah.
And I just take care of everything. So he was happy to get rid of it. It was way undervalued, but he was done. He was emotionally tired of the property, and I was like, I'm ready.
What's the term of that window?
3 years.
Okay, so after 3, you get a conventional.
Yes. So but
Because
we're
you'll have some
already-
equity there.
Absolutely, but we're already in that process to switch it over, because now the complex, the units are right next to each other, so we're just trying to put them all under one pretty, because my original loan was 2019 rates, and I'm like, 2021 rates?
Yeah, much better.
Yes.
Let's just repackage this whole
They're right next
deal.
door, we can put them on the same lot if necessary, like even having that flexibility is really nice. But we're already, even 6 months in, just like, let's-
Dude, I love you. Yes, seriously. This is so good.
So, and seller financing can be a really good thing for sellers. So one of the things that a lot of sellers that have investment properties are facing in the current market is the amount of money that they're getting cashed out for versus their base is so extreme that it's all a significant portion is going to capital gains.
Yeah, capital gains exposure.
And so one of the things that you can do with seller financing is you get a chunk of cash up front. You get regular payments on a property that you're no longer responsible for taxes, repairs, or issues, or homeowners insurance, or anything else on. It spreads that out a little bit. We all have to pay taxes. You'll pay them all eventually. But if you can spread it out over the course of 3 to 5 years
Or longer.
or longer,
Yeah.
then it gives you an opportunity to avoid a lot of the tax hits, still enjoy the benefit of having had an investment property while passing off the responsibility. And so there's some really good things to it, and it's a simple title deed,
Yeah.
which I always call pay to stay. So if for any reason the buyer who has done seller financing defaults,
Take the property back.
you do, and you do it in a way that is, it's a trust deed. You do it in a way that is very, very fast
Yeah.
in comparison to foreclosure. You're not foreclosing on something, you're simply reclaiming it. And
And then you can resell it again.
you could resell it again, or you could just start collecting the rents, or you could do whatever it is you needed to do.
Right.
And you should have an attorney work with you on those and set those up. You also need the attorney to be the trustee.
Can we get this out there and then throw it back to you guys? The seller financing mechanism is not really that complicated. It's important to really debunk that stigma. Traditional financing may give you a little bit more peace of mind because there's less moving parts, but seller financing is not that complicated. One of the ones we did was $435 On that 435, I did 35 down to get it to an even 4. He was able to do, he was, and I'm still making the payments. He said, let's do it over 10 years because he wanted to stretch it out as a retirement vehicle for him, a retirement payment for him. Yeah. And then it was amortized over 10. The balloon is done at 10. It's at a fixed 5%. He would not adjust the 5% depending on market. I'm fine with that because it's the deal we made. Yeah. And after 10 years, the property's free and clear. And then I have renters covering the debt service. Yep. The delta is essentially, I mean, it's not cash flow positive right now, but it's covering the debt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sounds like what you guys are doing.
I can add even for the owner. So tomorrow I'll be back at my building. We're putting on a new roof, new gutters, new windows. So if I did happen to default, he
gets value.
He gets a brand new house, new water heaters, like, because granted, I had a portfolio to show him of like, this is what I do, this is what I have done, look at what I did next door. But if he gets that property back, especially as quickly as you're talking about, he has more renters paying more money with a higher value property. So there really isn't a loss for him in this space.
Yeah, and I think in all of your, certainly your first seller financer, there was the advantage that you guys both live here and you got to know each other.
Yes.
And I think you still talk to him.
Oh, on a regular.
Yeah, on the regular. And so that's also something.
You proved it to him with the first one.
Yes. And so I reached out recently, like, you have others? He was like, no. I am selling. It is a great market to sell. And I was like, I hear you. Yeah. But again, if things start to dip, because the market is super crazy. Most people, if they could, would take the full price right now. But we do have a relationship again that when things cool off, if they cool off, then I can reach out to him again in the future and have no doubt that he will have land, a condo, a single family he doesn't want anymore that I can scoop in and be like, yes, thank you.
How about we get Nikki in? What's on the brain there, Nikki?
Well, so just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, what I just heard you say was it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
It really is. Building relationships with people. So, and in my case, because I did the financing, it was different. But even then, I had a relationship with a listing agent. Ooh. To where he was above board in everything he did, but he did give me a call because he knew that this listing was in my market. He was like, hey, I have something, and we just had a price adjustment. I thought you might have a buyer.
And then you had to have a relationship with the tenant as well.
Oh, yes. I do have a relationship with the tenant. So yeah. I knew the tenant. It actually, very good friend, my very first out in public cup of coffee that I had with someone during COVID over at Shenandoah Joe's. And we were talking, and I was telling her about this crazy thing where I was buying my very first investment property, because I also know she's interested in real estate. Just, a lot of people I know are. Who wouldn't want an investment property, right?
Yeah, the passive income is wonderful.
Absolutely. Like how a lot of people aren't sure how they're going to build their future. Either they're, so why wouldn't you? And as I'm telling her about this, she's like, hey, actually, we might need a rental.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, tell me.
Let's keep talking about this.
That's very appealing, Glenn.
Let's keep talking.
Evan Hansen is giving her props. I remember Deandra's first home purchase. I love what she has done now. This is the dream. Amanda Spagoni is giving you props. She says, Nikki is absolutely amazing. I admire Nikki. She says in the comment section right there. And multiple folks are asking about the economics of a deal. And I guess this is what they're asking here, and I'll get out of your way.
Well, and every deal is different. Every deal is unique. So I think we've sort of, talked through some of the basics, but you should really sit down with somebody that knows what they're doing and go through it individually to talk about your dynamics. I think some of the important things that come up is if you listen to each of their stories, regardless of how the deal was financed, the house got paid for by the tenant.
Yep.
That's right.
And there's a little bit of a cushion so that you don't immediately need the money to pay for something else.
That's right.
Yes.
So, if the tenant just pays for the house, you're good. And then you let that build.
That's the first key.
As time goes over, because otherwise your desperation is too high.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your ability to work with the tenant, to be reasonable about the rents, to not go to lay awake at night wondering how you're going to make everything meet is problematic. It took you years to quit your job. Nikki's still selling and buying houses with clients as a real estate agent. There's other things that are sort of supporting basics until you can grow this, learn more about it, and develop something. So I think that's one of the things that everybody's got to look at their personal situation. On the other hand, these are not impossible situations. even in this market that we're in right now, there's a standard number of foreclosures that happen. We're not expecting a big spike in them. We've already talked about that ad nauseum. But there's always going to be some that for personal reasons, the owners have to move on. And so there are those opportunities there if you're willing to step in, go the extra effort, and maybe even grit your teeth a little bit through the escrow and the contract process until it actually closes and things work. I think seller financing is a very similar thing. You have to come to the table prepared to lay out all of your personal life with very few limitations.
Yeah. Which you would have to do with traditional anyway. Traditional, yeah.
Yes, I think it probably has a little greater degree of scrutiny.
Because it's a human being and not a bank institution. Yeah.
And not a banking institution. And I think often how we dream of our lives being there, we're dreaming of the finished product. And so it feels impossible. And so you have to start with these steps in between and work your way up. So I think that's an important piece. Depending on who you are and how you want to do it.
That's well said.
Is going to talk about how the financing works and how you achieve that. I think one of the things that I think is a misnomer, one, I really hate the phrase passive income.
How come?
Because these ladies are anything but passive. They're not, there is no red velvet couch that they lay on day in and day out while scantily clad hunky men feed them bonbons. There's actual, and if there is, it's not because of the real estate. So I think, if you're watching them on the social media, if you know them personally, there's a lot of time spent. There's work that because they're starting how they started and because they have a certain commitment to the finances, they're learning how to replace toilets. They're checking the apartment building with septic. They're pulling up that lid and checking that septic every week. And, you sit here with these two attractive young ladies and you think, it's kind of hard to imagine. But there's actual video evidence. And so I think that sort of, is it good, better income? Yes. Because if you do it right, the rents get paid regularly and it becomes dependable. But to say what we're doing and what we're talking about today is passive, not really passive, not one-to-one. It's not an hourly exchange.
Yeah, totally get it. Let me throw this to you guys. And Kirby Robinson, various members of my family have done deals, about 5 purchases and sales with Nikki. She is an absolutely wonderful realtor. Kirby Robinson right there. Dude, you're getting some serious props here. Kelly Carver, Kelly Knight. I mean, a lot of people giving you props here. So I'm going to throw this to both you guys and then get out of your way. Buy an investment property where the rent rolls can cover the debt service. Critically important. Do those mechanics and that arithmetic beforehand. Second thing I want to throw to you guys is, have you considered at all the commercial piece? We have 24 tenants from us. One of them is residential, 23 are commercial. The one residential causes more headaches than all of the 23 combined. The 23 combined don't have running water, appliances, and they don't have dogs or pets. They go into their place. This is where they make their money. They treat this place better than I would treat it. Because they're earning their income there. I just throw that out there. Had you guys considered it? Because the executive office space, and I can't believe I'm saying this to you, because this woman is going to dominate the executive office space game once I throw this out there. This is the game I'm in, where it's like...
She will totally put you out of business.
She's going to put me out of business.
You give her too much.
Don't go to executive offices.
Get it, Deandra.
Fully furnished, cover the electric, fully furnished, and cover the electric and the internet, and then it's just turnkey for them to come in.
So...
Have you considered that one?
So I do have one commercial space that we're building out. I will say, so I was a high school teacher.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't want to be high school teachers because they feel that it's a lot. Kids have a lot of personalities.
It is
a lot going on. And what I think why I got good is because we have to set a culture from day one.
Okay.
And there is a culture that is set, and it takes time to set. But I also don't work on my residential very much. I'm fixing things that need to be fixed because I haven't been in this unit. This toilet is from 1980. We saw a water heater from 1975. And I was like, the building was built in 1982. So this was all when they were put in. This is wild. But that's things that have to be fixed. But the culture is different. For instance, something we have in my building, my complex, or all my properties, is non-emergencies are handled on Monday. Done. Like that light bulb's out, that 1 out of 4 light bulbs, it's gonna get taken care of on Monday because that's when we handle non-emergencies. We can't come every day to fix things because you're not paying for that. That's expensive to have someone on call 24/7. But when that culture is set, things change. And it took a while, don't get me wrong. There were people who were like, I don't like this, they moved on, or they had to be asked to move on.
That's a good idea.
But when things are set in stone, like everyone gets a welcome basket. And in that welcome basket is a plunger and a snake and an extra set of light bulbs. Because don't call me when you plunge, you stop up your toilet. Here's a plunger, here's a snake, here's everything you need. But
that's smart.
But that $15 investment for me up front, which also looks great on my end as an investor, keeps my costs low. We switch things to LED lights, so there aren't light bulb issues. Like, by fixing these problems now, it makes residential also very easy. And of course, you're gonna have a tenant or two who aren't so great.
How much are you putting in time a week in managing your portfolio?
Managing the units, so
The whole portfolio per week?
whole portfolio, I would say, without driving, probably about 10 hours. But that also includes maintenance work. So
Okay.
that's also like, I spent yesterday, Memorial Day, was painting a unit. But that was me 4 hours painting a unit, which took a little longer because the previous tenants were smokers,
Sure,
which we didn't
of
know.
course.
You're like,
Yeah.
that's different.
Did you keep the
But-
security deposit?
Of course.
Yeah. As you should.
But doesn't necessarily cover everything. But when I'm not renovating, it's probably down to like 4 hours a week.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. And a lot of that's just bookkeeping, so my tax lady isn't yelling at me on a regular.
And that's you doing the work or you calling subs?
If I've never done it before, so I don't do water heaters. Like, that's something I have said to myself, I will not replace a water heater. It's too much. Even after watching, it's too much. So if I
Yeah.
have to call them that, yes. But that's mostly me doing the work, for sure.
Good for you.
Yeah, but again, let me go back to the type of units I buy. I buy units that don't need work.
Yeah, easy to maintain.
I like boxes.
Right.
I like sharp corners. I like minimal closets. I like cinder block. Oh, I love cinder block. I like base core heat. My units don't have gas, and there's reasons, so we don't have to have gas leak checks, and we don't have to be checking leaky. Like, I like simple things that are easy to fix. We keep extra in the storage units. We're good.
Are you afraid of HOA investments?
Oh, I love HOA.
Okay.
Oh, I love HOA.
And-
especially because I don't live there. So
Yeah, because you don't have to maintain the roof, the grass, any of that
I
stuff.
love that they just take care of, the pool. I
Right.
don't have to deal with. Weight room, I don't have to deal with.
A lot of people are afraid of HOA
I
investments.
love an HOA. Oh,
Yeah?
I don't want to live in an HOA because I'm going to have pit bulls. But I love an HOA investment because there's so much I just have to worry about inside my 4 walls.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like that plumbing leak, not my issue. That leak, not my problem. There's a running water.
Dude, I could talk to these girls all day here. We got to get Nikki in the mix here. Come on, Nikki. Let's get in the
so
mix.
I
You're
was
killing.
thinking, I love how you set expectations.
Yeah.
The gift basket, setting those expectations, I think that is one of the biggest pitfalls for new investors
Yeah.
who are having rentals that are residential. And it's hard because you don't know what you're doing necessarily.
And I think if you listen to what you guys are doing, you're describing the compact, the agreement between a landlord and a
Yes.
tenant. So what I hear you guys saying is you buy the building, you go in, there's vacant spaces or maybe there's not, but you check things out and you're like, oh, that water heater is working, but it's 46 years old, it's gonna go. And these lights are great and they still light up, but they're gonna be a problem, let's just fix that up front. And hey, all of the things that you find, I'm gonna be here every Monday. And if it's an emergency, I'll take care of you. And so what I hear in the conversation that I think is often mixed is this compact between the landlord and the tenant about they're paying for a certain privilege and service and you're providing it and you have regular boundaries about it, just like about anybody else would.
Yeah.
And are able to coordinate it in that way. We had a conversation about winter emergency packs. So I really enjoy local landlords that live close by, own their properties,
Hands-on
know their
landlords.
tenants. I really like that because I think it's, we hear a lot about the worst landlords. That always makes the news.
Yeah.
And we forget that there's a whole opposite side of that spectrum. And when we went out, before we did the show, the three of us got together, we had a drink, we talked about what it would be like. I told them what they couldn't say about me.
There was a lot more
Long
coulds
list.
than couldn't. Yeah. Quinton.
And we talked about one of your buildings that had a power outage last winter, and
Quinton
you were
Beckham.
preparing
For this year.
for this year. And I'd love for you to sort of tell a little bit about that story, just so that people can hear what kind of landlords we're talking about.
Absolutely. So my first apartment building is on city water septic, right? And it's in a small town. I get a lot of retirees or people on disability because it is fixed. Like the rent's not going up, and it is enough for them to maintain and have a degree of independence on their own, especially my 70, my 80-year-old tenants. But when the city lost power, because we had this freak ice storm, it was in Charlottesville, it also went to the south, the county lost water. And I got these phone calls, and it wasn't like, unfortunately, there is nothing I can do. The county has lost water, so they cannot get water to you guys. It's not that the building has lost power itself, the whole county has lost power. But I could hear the franticness of my food, my water, bathrooms, and it's like, okay, so although this is not my fault, because you're older, because there is snow on the ground, what we're gonna do next winter is that everyone's gonna get a pack of water. This is your winter water. This is your winter ice storm water. Do not drink this water because it's just December 23rd. This is, if I lose power, I have drinking water. I also have now my automated text system. Like if there's gonna be an ice storm, I'm gonna send out a warning of like, hey, fill up a bucket. I know this is not for showering, but at least you get 1 or 2 flushes that you can get through, because that's not based on electricity, that's based on just pressure.
Sure.
But giving that heads up of like, I don't know if you're paying attention, here's what we got, here's what I can do. But again, be aware we can prepare together, but I don't want them stranded. But even though it's not my fault, I'm not responsible for the city losing power, at least I can help in this moment, because I know it's scary, and I know and I'm the person, right? I'm the person you're gonna call because the city's not gonna pick up the phone, but maybe we can make.
And you're the face that they're going to see after that.
Yeah.
And I do think, you touched on how we're all in it together.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of what made this succeed. And I think if we talk about landladies, landlords, owners of properties that are for rent, and a lot of their long-term success, it has to do with sort of being in it together.
Yeah.
Probably doing some stuff that you're not legally required to do,
Yep.
but it's part of that compact of, you pay for a certain service from me, and I'm going to do my best within the reasonable boundaries of the culture I create to take care of you.
But there is a benefit to what she did, because it's shocking with how many of the tenants, when you go even out of your way once for them, how much they remember that come renewal time and or take care of the unit time. Because they see that you're going above and beyond, so they feel a little more compelled too. I guess that's just the golden rule.
Yes, being a decent human being
Yeah.
goes a long way.
Right.
Period.
And it goes back to the culture. When
Yeah.
you set a culture, because what happens with my little old ladies is that I get gossip. Oh, and I love a tenant who will gossip about what's going on in the units. But even as a teacher,
Love her.
even as a teacher, one of the things I pressed was I wanted a positive peer pressure, right? I'm good like hanging out afterwards, but it's one thing as a teacher to tell everybody to do their work. It's another thing when the students are like, stop. We have work to do. And that also translates into residences. It's one thing if I'm like, hey, you can't leave garbage outside of your door. We're going to get possums. We're going to get raccoons. Trash is there. Please go put it in the dumpster. It's another thing if the other tenants are saying, hey, we don't want to live like this. We need you to go put your stuff in the dumpster. Because it goes back to like, I'm treating you with respect. I'm treating the space with respect. And they're like, I also want to treat the space with respect so that I'm happy and comfortable where I live.
So, Nikki, if you're talking to yourself 6 years ago and you have 2 pieces of advice that you've learned in the intervening time to move this
Start
along,
earlier.
what would it be?
Just do it.
Yeah,
Just do it.
that's what I would tell me.
So, number 1, just do it.
Yeah.
And number 2, just do it.
Yes. Yes.
Stop overthinking
Period.
it.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Because I see people running numbers is so important. I love numbers. I love data, whatever the right way to say that is. I love it. But you can run yourself out of any property.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you want. For me, this property that I have, it is a long-term game plan. And trust me, right after I closed on it, it was very tempting to put it right back on the market and make
flip
a
it.
pretty penny.
Yeah.
Because I could have.
Right.
But this is a long-term thing for me, and I would like to collect more doors. One of the things I really love about Deandra is that she has multiple doors under one roof. And when you're talking
That's
investment
nice.
properties, what we count is doors. So whether that's a single-family home, which I don't really love saying it that way, but that's what it's called, or whether it's an apartment complex, a duplex, whatever it may be, the more doors you have under one roof, it gives a much better sense of stability for your investment property. So for me, I do have that one home. My plan is to grab more. You know, just grab them. They're mine now, sorry. But that's the goal. And the goal is to have more doors under one roof as well. So just do something, though. You have to just do it. And if it's a mess up, be ready for that. It can only be so big a mess up there.
My first one, I can tell you about a mess up. My first one was a mess up, and it was in 2008 and change, bought at the absolute wrong time possible. Villas at Southern Ridge, down 5th Street Extended, kind of close to Wegmans.
Yep.
And that was at the same time of launching the advertising agency business. And dude, if my two best friends hadn't moved in at $400 a room, $800 total, I would have defaulted on that mortgage.
Well, see, and there you go, because now you're house hacking, which is a really, really good way to get into investing.
Yeah.
Truly.
I had to do it.
Well, there you go.
And then I stay there 7 years, and you stay there 7 years, and next thing you know, you have a hell of a lot of equity, and then next thing you know, you just have to slide another tenant in there, and now that mortgage is $1,004, the HOA's $175, and the place is renting for $1,625.
Wow.
And it's going up 4.5% every year. It's the lowest price point in the district, the school district. So a lot of questions coming for the ladies. Can we throw these to the ladies here?
Please.
So questions about leverage, questions about when is a good time to hire a maintenance manager, when do you get to that point, questions about credit, and questions about in between the years or time in between the purchasing of investment properties. Basically, how long do you wait in between purchasing each one to allow yourself to accrue some equity in that one if you wanted to use leverage on that one? So can we first start, I'll get out of your way, credit. Credit scores, credit checks.
What is the question?
So the question is, do you have to have really good credit even if you're doing a seller-owner finance deal? What if your credit, you're working on improving your credit, but it's not where you want it yet?
Good credit is really like
It's critically important.
Yeah, well,
For
it's a
life.
personal
for
kind
life.
of, it's an objective statement. Like, what does good credit mean? I have clients who've come to me and said, my credit's 790. And I'm like, my credit's never been over 720. So,
Yeah. 790 is incredible.
Right, that's incredible. But they're like,
Yeah.
is it high enough? It's like, yes,
Yeah,
it's high
that's
enough.
way
but I
high.
also bought my first house when my credit was 640. So I don't know what you mean by good credit.
640 is still good. It's called good, right?
I mean, it was the lowest interest rate, lowest that they
In
would
the bracket.
accept. Yeah,
right,
where they
right.
were like, come back.
Yeah.
I think back to what Nikki said earlier, part of it is speaking with the finance person and actually finding out what credit is necessary. Don't build up in your head what you think you need to come to find out you needed 10 points less than that and you've been holding off for 2 years because you had someone told you once that something was happening and that's what you just ran with. With my seller financing deals, my credit wasn't even a part of the application.
Right.
Like, even though I had the report, they didn't ask for it at all because it was like, can you manage this property? And that was where that kind of landed. So,
And do you think with a seller financing deal, the person that's doing the deal, almost in the back of their head, wants the deal to kind of fall apart because they know they can just resell the property again or keep the tenants? Or do you think the person, and now you may have had a really good one, sounds like you had a phenomenal relationship with them, because the person doing the owner finance deal can just get it back with all your improvements, keep all your money to that point, keep your tenants in place, and keep it running, right?
yeah, so if you're going to go with like, what do evil landlords do in their basement? Like, absolutely. I guess there's some people who are just like banks. I guess that was happening, 2008, when there was the hope that you will default and I will take this over and I can sell it to whoever I want to sell it next. I don't believe that's everyone.
Okay.
I think it is more like that is their backup plan. Just like banks don't want to own properties. They don't want foreclosures because they don't want to deal with these empty places or these tenants or whatnot. I really think for them, it was, I get consistent income without any of the worry. It's like note investing, right? But if somebody defaults, I still get to take the property back and not lose completely for this deal I did with this person.
In a lot of ways, they got passive income.
Yeah, they
You
truly
were somewhere
got the
in
passive
between
income. Jeez.
passive and active, but
Yes.
they got passive
Without
They
the
got
capital gains
truly
exposure.
passive income.
Yeah.
And they asked another question about in between, like when do you buy it? And I think it's
Well, let's ask her on credit.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well,
What do you think on
I
credit?
don't have the experience of the seller financing aspect,
Okay.
but I'm going to say the credit is important. And one of the things that I try to get anyone who talks to me about buying a house is, here, talk to this loan officer, let her pull your credit, please, because what she can do once she pulls that credit, yes, it's going to ding your credit by a teeny amount.
So small.
But what she can do
Show you what you
is
need to
give
fix.
you a plan.
Yeah.
And the plan that you need to improve your credit, as a general rule, is not the same as the plan that you need to improve your credit for buying a house, whether it's your primary home or whether it's investment. It's not the same process. So yes, you can read all the things online and they can be very helpful, but if you want to, hey, this is the fastest way for you to do it, is that something you want to do? No? Okay, here's another plan. Here's plan B. Does this work to meet your needs? Because it's really about what your needs are.
Yeah.
What do you want? What are you willing to do to get it?
And I think if we take the time and we figure that stuff out and we get those steps lined out in front of us,
Yeah.
you know, I know for most of the world, it's really difficult to sit across from a loan officer, a financial analyst, somebody else and be like, okay, here's all my shit.
Yeah.
And this is
Here are my
every
skeletons.
mistake- This is every mistake I've made since college, which for me is a lot of mistakes. But
That's why we like you.
But if you don't do that and you don't get sort of a path, you waste a lot of money not getting anywhere. Because
Yes.
the desperation
Yes.
sets in and suddenly you deserve the new motorcycle or you deserve the new guitar or you deserve this because there's nothing else in my life I can make better. And so you keep yourself always at the starting line without taking that first step. And so I do think sitting down and making that plan is super important.
I want to tell you what happened to me in 2013. In November 2013, I didn't get my $28,000 a year job yet. I was working like 5 jobs. I was bartending, a vet assistant, I was a lifeguard, I was swim instructing. I was doing everything I can, which is why that $750 job was so hard to get everything on the table. And I decided at that point I wanted to get a house. And what I went to speak with a lender and at a credit union, and she, after running everything, chuckled. She was like,
She laughed at you?
she laughed at me.
No, she didn't.
And
You should
because
take
it
your
was-
entire portfolio and turn now. Look what you messed up
She
on.
chuckled, and it was out of a no. But, which I know is like the worst case scenario, and that's why I want to share this, right? Of like feeling embarrassed.
That
But
motivated you.
Deandra, the answer's never no. The answer is either yes or not yet.
And what she, I guess, kind of was like, was not yet. But what she did after she caught herself chuckling was that we had a conversation about what had to happen. And that took me 18 months to get through. I had to pay off all my credit card debt, which was sitting around $5,000. I had to get my credit score up, which was going to come from paying off the credit card debt.
Sure.
And I had to get $4,000 in my pocket.
Okay.
She's like, this is what you need to do. And that was November 2013. And we bought May 2015.
Yeah.
So again, 18 months of, I got this job, I'm going to still work this part-time job to get that credit card debt down. Even though I can't count it as income, I'm going to do this. But having that plan made it so that I didn't, in the back of my mind was like, I got to pay off my car. Right? Imagine if I thought to myself I had to have no debt to pay off my car. That would have been 6 years of me trying to pay off a vehicle when in that 6 years I'm retired. Right? So like the difference of having a plan and accepting the facts, and it was true. That's what was, even though she laughed and I was embarrassed, it was real. And I had to be like, this is where you've put yourself. So what can we do about it moving forward?
Respect.
Yes. So
I
much.
mean, it was harsh.
Yeah, but motivated the hell out of you.
It did. And I wouldn't even say it motivated. It was more like, it is what it is. Like, this is what, if you want to change this, this is all you got. I wouldn't, because I know some people are like, well, if she said I can't, then I'm going to do it. And it wasn't that. It was really just like, hey, you can't afford rent. So if you want to not move in with your parents, this is what you have to do because this is what this lady is saying. And maybe I could have gotten a second opinion. Maybe I could have gone somewhere else, but I just left it was like, look, this is what it is. Do what you got to do.
Well, she gave you a game plan,
She did.
and then you followed it.
Yeah.
It sounds like to a T.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
I went back to her. Mm-hmm. And I guess, again, I could have gone to someone else, but I went back to her, a year later and got my approval and met up with Quinton, and that's when we started looking. But it happened. That's what happened to me. Without a job, with all this debt, she had to give me a plan to move forward. If not, I'd be in that same spot.
More questions, QB. Should we throw?
Go.
Okay. Andre Xavier owns CVille Hop-On Tours. He owns CVille Travel, and he's opening Patch Brewery in Gordonsville.
He just closed on that.
He did, closed
Yeah.
on the land. Yep, he's watching. He says, is now a good time to buy an investment property, or should one wait 12 or even 24 months? We're talking about buying an investment property in Lynchburg or Waynesboro. Thank you for your answers to this question. Andre Xavier.
It is
Thank you,
always a
Andre.
good time.
Yes.
That's what I said.
It is
Yes.
always a good time.
Absolutely.
If the numbers made sense. It was a good time in 2008. It was a good time in 2015. It was a good time in 2021. Both of us closed on properties less than 6 months ago.
Is your top vetting factor, will the rent rolls cover the debt service? Is that the number one vetting factor for you?
For me, it's profit. It's not
Okay.
just cover. Like,
Okay.
just covering is not enough.
What's the delta you want to see of profit
Depends on right now I'm on the 1,500 to 2,000 range.
per investment?
Yes.
Per month?
Yes.
Okay, and that's combining all those units
Yes.
the
into
doors.
one? All
And
the
after
doors
I pay
into
off all the
one?
bills, like water, electric, anything I have to pay, I need to be making 1,500 to 2,000.
Okay, how about you? Same question for you.
So it definitely needs to do more than just make the mortgage, because I have an account set up, in theory, for all my other properties as well, that don't exist yet, but will soon. And that account needs to grow, because things break. I currently have a faucet for a main bathroom in my rental that I need to find a time when they're good not having water for just a little bit so I can swap it out, right? It has to cover some of those things.
And when I think about Andre and his question about Lynchburg, Waynesboro, when we look at how areas are growing and where people are moving, people need places to live, and more people are moving to areas that we might have thought of as less dynamic.
Yeah.
And so these are great areas to own properties and to be a good landlord. And like she said, you have to look at each house one at a time, look at the numbers, and if the numbers make sense, then it works. And it's easy to get. We talk about global, like, large numbers all the time. It always boils down to you in that house,
Yeah.
and you have to figure it out.
Yes.
I can tell you, 50% of everybody gets divorced, which means it's either you or your spouse, or you can focus on what you want and your own relationship, and a house is no different.
Jamie Turner's got a question, Orange County's finest. So there's a lot of questions here. Are you guys okay with time? You put a
I'm
great
good.
round table together.
Let's
Are you
do this.
okay?
I love it.
Can we do
I'm
this?
ready. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So Jamie Turner, I believe, Jamie, you work in finance, right? Orange County's finest here. He's got multiple questions here, all in one. He says, do you all utilize any calculations to decide on the purchase of an investment property, i.e. the 1% rule? Rent must be 1% or higher of purchase price for maximum cash flow, or 75% of ARV. And then he continues, are you all finding the majority of your properties on market? Any and all information is welcome. I'm here to listen.
My calculations is it profiting $2,000 a month. So that's kind of where I said, and am I buying above value?
Okay.
So if the numbers make sense, so my payment, so with my apartment building, for instance, the payment is like $850 a month is what we agreed to that I have to pay this gentleman. And so if my rent roll is bringing in $5,000, I'm cool paying him $850.
Yeah.
And if he wanted a little more, I'm cool paying him $850.
What does it go when it's interest and principal then?
If it was interest in principal, depends on, I guess, how long the term is. If I got it over the 20 years like my last one, it'd probably be like 11.
So you're still sitting pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So either way, and that was part of the calculation
Yeah.
with him, and in the future,
Yeah.
even with the worst interest rate I've gotten, I'm still straight. But I don't know if that fits the 1% rule. I try not to get bogged down by other people's rules about what I should be investing, because like Quinton said, I get to decide. Because my very first properties, I was just breaking even. And that was good for me because I got to live for free. So
Yeah.
that was different for other people.
Yeah.
And then when I left, we have our worst performing property, probably makes like $250 a month, $300, but it's a Section 8 tenant. They have always paid on time, and it was like
Does the government guarantee that?
Yes,
They do.
The only time it was hectic was when the government shut down, and we got letters, and they were like, "So, if the government doesn't open back up, we can't pay you, because the government is closed."
Like,
Yeah.
we'll keep track.
Well, we'll do our best, and that was the only time.
Here's some cheese.
Right? She's been there 3.5 years, and that was the only time we had a worry about if that was going to get paid or not. But even here, my current realtor under Quinton, I called him and was like, "So should we sell?" because this market looks hot. And he was like, do you need the money? He was like, no. He was like, then
don't sell.
What are you talking about? And I was like, okay. It looked really exciting. Everybody was posting their cool Instagram posts. I would post mine too. But that maybe makes like 300, but there's no work. There's nothing to do. We don't need the money. So like, why? But I wouldn't buy that property now because it doesn't make enough.
Yeah.
But yes,
But once it's paid off, though.
and it's also
Exactly.
Just
in the
a gravy
moment,
train,
it's not
right?
causing anything. Like
Yeah.
if it's not causing me any stress, that's truly a passive property. If it's not causing me any stress, why would
I also kind of love Section 8 housing. I know the government shutting down was terrible, but Section 8 housing is like guaranteed payment.
Yeah.
There's a floor limit that's completely
Yes.
independent of your tenants
Yep.
and their individual lives, and on occasion even like bonuses when they have a lot of the housing program that can't find places to rent. They will
Charles
bonus
is doing
you.
that right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, they will bonus
Right
you
now they're doing
to
it.
find
I wish I
homes
had an
for
open
people.
unit so
Yeah.
I could take advantage of it. And some people get nervous about Section 8 because of the type of tenants or their idea of the type of tenants.
Exactly.
Or taking care of the
Idea.
unit.
Well,
That
so
comes
that's
up
the second
often.
one. They
Yeah.
get worried about the yearly inspection. And I'm like, they are inspecting if windows open. They are inspecting, like, are there rats? Like, and that is on the list. It's like, do all the windows open? Does the hot water heater work? And I'm like, these are things you should be doing
Yes.
anyway. So, yes, I've always passed because the window needs to open. Yes. Like, the water needs to work. The burners needs to work on the stove. Yes. So, if you don't have a property like that, you should be renting anyway. Mm-hmm. But the
Realtor
type of-
Brittany Gray is watching and giving props here.
Nice.
Do you want to?
So I want to talk about the 1%.
Yeah, please.
So here's one of the.
This is for Jamie Turner.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So no, I wouldn't say use that as a hard fast rule because I wouldn't say use any basic equation that you're going to find anywhere as a hard fast rule. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what those numbers look like for you. I'm a huge fan of Bigger Pockets, and I think I recently even shared a video from them where he's going over certain rules, and the 1% rule I think was one of them, because there are all sorts of number of rules that you can follow or not. And one of the biggest takeaways from that video was that he said, hey, don't follow any one of these rules like it's your next religion.
Be
You
flexible.
just don't. That's not
Every
what you do.
deal is different.
Every deal is different, and you have to take in the whole picture.
Learn the system behind it. Like,
Yes.
it's important to understand those rules, right? It's important to
Absolutely.
understand the 1%
Know
rule,
them.
understand where they came from. And part of that was like, they want you to be able to cover the mortgage, put money away, pay for bills. If you can do that and make a
fix
profit,
the roof
then
when it
you
needs
are
replaced.
doing the system of what the 1% rule was set up to do
Yes.
without having to say like, if it's $2 off, I can't do it.
And I think it's a lot of this stuff when we start talking about ARV and passive income and whatnot, we leave a whole population of people behind because it feels like
Complicated.
there are words that you will not hear outside of the cigar riddled, bourbon serving, good old boys club boardroom that only they use because they like that language.
Cap rate.
And
Yes.
somehow, yes, I'm trying to
Yes.
tell you to stop
Cap
using it.
rate. Price per square.
And I'm not
don't
saying
get
that
me started on that
I'm
one.
not saying that those
It's a
rules
bad
are
number.
wrong.
Yeah.
I just think based on how, when you're not somebody with a lot of money and property, on how you think of it,
Yeah.
sometimes you just feel like pushed out because
Yeah.
I don't know what the word means. I can't expose my credit, so I'm even doubly afraid to ask what it means.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this applies because it feels like a wall when really it's more the dotted line in the road. There's times you're supposed to cross it. And so I think boiling all of that down is really important. And part of what I loved about this group is if you're listening and you can't relate to one or both of these ladies, you're probably, we're never going to sit and have a drink. So it's just, I feel like most of us, the vast majority of us, especially in Charlottesville, there's a lot in here that rings true, that feels like this could be me. And I do think it's important you look at the individual thing and the numbers and what's your goal. And by all means, talk to somebody else that's smart. Find a good real estate agent. Sign up for one of her classes.
Yes.
Let her coach you. We want more people to have access to this.
Yeah.
And we want people to start establishing themselves and get it over the idea that their personal circumstance and their 675 credit score and the fact that they only make
675 is not bad.
It's not.
Yeah.
and the fact that they only make $28,000 a year means this is impossible.
Yeah.
It's not. It does require some commitment. It does require some work, But you're in such a better position in life if you know how to learn than if you just know. So be okay not knowing and seek out ways to learn. You can do this. You can totally do this.
Yeah.
There's no secret husband behind these people writing them checks. In fact, Deandra was like, "This is my life. If you're going to marry me, just know I'm going to do this."
Hey, that's what he married into, bro.
I had that conversation with my wife too.
So he married up, is what we're hearing.
I did. I outkicked my coverage.
And I suppose one of the things I really, really hope everybody that watched this walks away with is two things. One, we have some really great landlords in a town and an area that needs good rentals.
Well said.
Because we're always going to have a need for them, and we need a lot of housing options. When you read the news about rental rates are going up at twice the rate of mortgage prices, well, that's true, but it's one sentence out of a 6-page story.
Right.
Yes.
And the 6-page story is, yes, we pay a lot for rent, but it's because we have a lot of people moving in for rent, and there's still a lot of local landlords that are not part of that.
Yeah.
That yes, they're making reasonable rate increases. There's such a thing as taxes going up, and you need to cover that. But they're also really embracing the compact.
That's actually a question we just got. What's a reasonable increase?
What's a reasonable increase? Well, I think that depends on the building. There's not going to be a rule, remember, because they're lines, not walls. But if you're anywhere under 3% year over year, you're getting something. Mm-hmm.
Mine's 4.5% across the portfolio.
Well,
4.5%.
But that's commercial.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, even in the residential, it's 4.5.
Okay.
and I think standard is somewhere around 3.
Yeah.
But it's all about what you're getting for that, though. What are we talking about there, and what kind of property there's no one rule where everybody on this side of the line is a bad guy and everybody on this side of the line is losing money. So, and that's how we tend to think of it. And the other thing I want people to walk away with is that you can totally do this.
Yes.
You can absolutely do this, and there's resources and there's people out there to help guide you, and there's no one answer. You're not going to be able to just sit quietly in your house and do it. You got to get out there and meet people and look at things and try, but make a plan. Follow that plan. Maybe you're an 18-month plan. Maybe you're a 6-month plan. Maybe it's 2 or 3 years.
That's a question.
But the only person that's going to change your future is you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to step in and do it for you. There is no magical, I think like 30 people will win life-changing lottery amounts in our country in the next 5 years. You're probably not one of those. So make a plan.
More questions? Throw this in.
Yeah.
You ready? So Nakili,
Nakahili?
is giving you some props right now. She says, "I love you, Nikki Chambless." Nikki Chambless.
I
you got
love
a lot-
her
you
and
got a lot
her
of friends
own
there.
tattoo and massage. I'm just saying, because she's amazing.
There you go. Katie Pearl, which I believe is on your
yes.
team.
Katie is amazing.
Is watching the show. She said, if I had advice, I would tell my younger self to buy a new primary residence every year for 5 to 10 years and then convert them to rentals. Here's an interesting one that's coming via LinkedIn.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is about leverage. It says, Jerry, did you or the guest on the roundtable utilize leverage to build your portfolio? If so, how? I'll get out of the way first. I did not. With each of my properties, I put about 10% down. The steepest one was the 435 on the second floor of this building. The lowest one was the $180 at the Villas at Southern Ridge. And then you had some 120s, some 230s, and some 1 in the 3s. And then we chopped them up and made more units that I could rent to hedge against risk. So I would take an office suite, instead of renting it to one person, I rented it to 3 people. And I found that there was more people that could afford the lower price point, obviously, than the large suite price point. And then if one of my tenants left, I didn't have the risk of it being the one tenant that was covering the debt service on that unit. I had 2 other ones that were paying to help offset the risk. And then I waited every 2 years to buy a property, which allowed me to accrue equity in that property and also minimize risk. So I did not utilize leverage. Ladies, you want to go?
I both did and didn't. So for the first 2, was out of pocket because it was house hacking. So got a conventional loan, just put down at 3%. For the first duplex, I did. My very first property came back with a HELOC of like 50 grand, and I was like, okay, this is free money. Use that to purchase the down payment.
Tell them what a HELOC is.
Oh, sorry, HELOC is a home equity line of credit. So
That's
my
right.
property increased in value from 85 to like 150 within 2 years. So they gave me a $50,000 HELOC I could use, a line of credit, which essentially I could write a check against the property. With interest-only payments of like 2% or something crazy. Use that for the down payment for my first duplex. Then when I bought the condo for my seller financing, still have money on the HELOC, use that. Eventually sold that condo to buy the apartment building, and then have been saving such to use for the second apartment building. What helped me not feel over-leveraged was that I didn't quit my job. So I was making $28,000, like I said earlier, and then a year later I became a teacher, so my income went from 28 to 48, but I still lived like I made 28.
Nice.
So all that money was able to just stack, and then my husband moved in with me, and we were able to just like save money and put money away. But because we didn't change our lifestyle, we were able to stack away money, which also made us better landlords because we weren't relying to live on the income or the profits coming from the properties.
And
but
then
that's
you,
what that went
and
to.
you and your husband have regular finance conversations?
Oh, yes.
Like, this is a big deal in your
Well, I
household?
think that was probably a contingent of.
It was,
Mary. Right here.
I made a video yesterday as I was setting up the budget for June. He was like, I filled out the budget. I was like, oh my God, he's so attractive.
Wait, is that? There's a Kwame Irving watching right now. Is that? That's your family, right?
That's my family. That's one of my cousins.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I wasn't sure if that was your husband here.
No. But we had regular conversations because he was taught, just like I was taught, the way to be financially secure was to keep going to school and getting more degrees and to get higher paying jobs, no matter the debt, right? If we can get PhDs, if we can get masters, we'll get the six-figure income, no matter we have six-figure debt. And that was the only path. And then when we started dating and then into marriage, was like, I don't want that to be our only path. If you want to go back to school, so be it. And I'm proud to say, like, he's back in school right now, full ride, and we can live off of the rentals because we've been planning for so long. But that wasn't the only way that I wanted to live. And having those regular conversations, both about my properties, both about what we're spending on a regular basis, helped us feel more secure that one person's not gonna like run away with all the money. And also that we just knew where things were. So those regular conversations helped us save, especially as our income has grown, to stay in our little lane. And when we want to explode financially, we will do that, but we're not quite there yet. But that's how I've used leverage over my portfolio build.
Well, see, I don't have the leverage conversation right now, though.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't. For me, I went traditional financing for both of my home purchases. No, I will say, quick tip.
Yeah.
If you want to refi and roll it into your investment purchase, it makes your refi go faster for some companies, because I may have done that, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
Walk us through that. Walk us through that.
Well, normally doing a refinance, for a lot of companies, and I personally think as it should be, that refinancing is not as high priority as a home purchase, which means somebody's home purchase that needs to close in 30, 35 days.
Gets priority.
Totally gets priority.
Yeah.
But if you need to refinance and you're buying another purchase and your purchase is relying on that refinance number happening, then it's now priority.
Becomes all part of the same
It's all
package?
part of the same thing. So now, and they're doing the same thing twice, basically.
So you don't have to negotiate a budget with anybody else, though?
No.
No. Does that feel like, I would imagine, I'm just making a guess here, I would imagine in some ways it's sort of like, ooh, I really am out there and you're really conservative and we've got to like negotiate because I still need to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because this makes me happy and this is my path forward.
It was
So there's some negotiating, but I wonder, does it feel a little more reassuring? Do you look over with some jealousy that ooh, somebody's in it with you?
Okay,
How
so
does this feel?
there is I love the idea of being in it with someone. I think that's amazing. I love that. And financially, that can be a really nice thing, being in it with someone, because if you are very different and you can't come to an agreement of what you want, that can actually do the opposite. And I see that challenge. I'm in a Facebook group, Lady Landlords, right? I try to be in all the things to get access to, oh, that's what you did. Yeah. That was not so smart. I'm not going to do it. Or, oh, that was brilliant. I'm totally going to do that. Well, they're both going to be. They're so all out there. I know. It's important to learn what not to do just as much as what to do.
Yeah.
But if you're on the same page, like, it's amazing. And then if you've got two, like, paychecks, I say that because I'm in real estate and in business for myself. So it's a little different for me, right? Being able to bring, like, join your forces combined. We are super whatever. I don't know. So that's great. But then there's also something really reassuring and also terrifying about it all being on me.
Yeah.
Like, it's equally comforting and wonderful. And then also, oh, crap, it's all me.
So with my husband, what is really interesting is that I'm for sure the risk taker. I want to invest all the money. I'm like, is there $5,000 in an account? Too much. We got to go buy something.
But you're saying cash in account is worthless. It's just devalued.
Like, oh,
yes.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, no.
Yeah.
We need to have money too.
Yeah.
And so part of our agreement was like, hey, once we hit this certain savings goal, you can do whatever you want.
But this has to stay there.
But this is money that no one can
That's
touch.
fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
And it was
Yeah.
like, that's a totally fair statement.
Yeah.
And it wasn't wrong. He is right. We do need money for our own house, for our own dogs. If I slip and fall, like, we do need money in the event something happens for us. But in my world, it was like, spend it all, invest it all. We'll pay for the credit cards.
Doesn't it almost turn into an addiction?
Yeah.
It's so addictive.
Right?
Real estate.
It's my favorite thing in business is this.
Yeah.
It's like working hard. This is the goal. Going to the closing table, getting handed the keys. This is mine.
It's great.
It's an addiction.
Nothing better than that high.
I need to have, and I mean, he doesn't know this piece, but also the banks want me to have reserves
course.
too. So as much as it was like, yeah, honey, it's for you.
Yeah, I'm doing this because I love you.
I love you, sweetie.
I'm doing this because I love you.
That money, but genuinely, y'all, that money sitting in that account for a year without me touching it looks real sweet to banks.
Yes.
Of like, she has reserves that no one has touched for a long time. She's consistent. She's whatever. So it was a conversation, but we can both win. There is a way for both people, at least in my situation, for us both to win and be happy. And he's definitely happy with those rent checks. So
Everybody's happy. It's the first. Rent checks are glorious right now.
How about the question on when you hire a maintenance manager via LinkedIn? Does it get to too many units where you're going to need someone additional as a maintenance manager?
So I got to that point this year with my complex where I needed to have like a super, right? Someone who lives in the complex who could deal with true emergencies, which are few and far in between, but who could, like, I could have boots on the ground in case there was a true emergency. And so he just gets a discounted rent for like working like 3 hours a week if need be. Like,
does he get any payment?
He does not.
Okay.
So he just, and that was the simplest way after speaking with our bookkeeper and the attorney of just like give him a discounted rent, cap his hours, and work from there. If we go over that, then he is set up to get paid.
Like hourly?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was because at that point, I mean, I had 22 units in a commercial space. It was just, I lived 2 hours away. So with that many people, especially after the winter, with more older people moving in, we just want to have, like, one, before we hired him, like, a lady had fallen and, like, couldn't get in contact with anybody. But we didn't have him there to get in contact with. But he could have just opened the door and helped her up. But she wound up calling an ambulance. They wrecked her space because they had to get into the unit. But having someone there for like a true emergency situation would be helpful. But that was this year for me when it finally like boiled over and I couldn't do it anymore.
Andrea Stamps, you are awesome.
Can I say that was my first grade teacher?
She's watching. Oh, she is.
She was my first grade teacher.
Well, she's watching you right now. You better tell her something good here. She wants to hear something from you. Where is she watching?
I don't know if she's still in New York, but that was my first grade teacher.
She said your first grade teacher is so proud of you.
Right.
Yeah. She says you're super proud of you.
I'm pretty sure my first grade teacher is dad. We come from different generations.
Dawn Burwell?
Yes.
Oh my God, I love you. That's what she just said right there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She's one of my clients. So that's great. Thank you, Donna. Awesome. She's super supportive.
Yeah. Anything on you want to jump in here, conversation-wise?
So I had a thought, and then I got derailed by dying
The
teachers.
first grade
I'm
teacher.
sorry.
Yeah.
My brain just went,
I'm good at that,
oh my God. When you're derailing things here. I was thinking as far as having like a super or a maintenance person, that's going to vary because here's the thing. Not everybody is going to want to go change out toilets themselves. Mm-hmm. We are totally down with that. We would prefer to do that in most cases because money talks, and being able to do something and do it well and make things happen is very helpful. Yeah. But that's not going to be everyone's deal.
And I also think one of the things I want to point out as a broker, when you talk about her hiring a super, she's talking about acts of God.
Right.
When a tenant really, there's nowhere in the lease that says you're 70 and you don't have one of those things.
Life alert.
And so I just want somebody in the building that knows your face, that will unlock the door and help you up. These are sort of extra things. If you're talking about, I need a building supervisor because the roof always leaks and the water heaters are always breaking and this unit always goes out, you've bought the wrong building and you didn't get it set up correctly.
Yeah. Yes.
And so there's a line there. So yes, you might need a property supervisor in some place when you reach a certain level. If you've bought the right building and you've done the right things, you're not needing a full-time maintenance person.
Correct.
Well,
So-
you can.
Especially if we're talking about, I'm not talking about property ownership companies.
Yeah,
We're not
yes.
talking about
No.
the firm from out of state. I'm talking about humans buying, like people we might see at the coffee shop, owning rental properties in and around the area.
And so what else he does that's not an emergency is that he mows the lawn.
Oh, nice.
So he'll mow the lawn. The lawn's 2 acres. He has his riding mower. He mows the lawn. He cleans the gutters once a season. He does trash pickup once a week. And so those are things of like, this is maintaining the space for everybody. It should take an hour a week. And then we still have a 2-hour space for true acts of God emergencies. But it's, yes, I cannot be down there all the time. If there's heavy rain and the grass goes super fast, like we have someone on the ground to do that.
And that was smart of you because you didn't want those 3 hours a week to go unused.
Yes.
So you figured out some fixed ways for him to use those 3 hours every week.
Mm-hmm.
That was very smart. So this one is coming in again via LinkedIn. Some of the tough questions via LinkedIn. Surprise there.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know.
People are on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
That
people are
was
on
what I
LinkedIn.
was wondering.
So folks are saying you guys have talked about a lot of the good of being a landlord. Can we talk some of the bad? Has anyone had to evict someone? What is the eviction process like? And how does it get started? And how do you go about it? So we don't have to cover that if you don't want to, but I think it is something we should maybe cover.
I recently got a TikTok, and one of the first videos that went viral was, what do you do if someone doesn't pay?
So you set up a TikTok account.
I did.
Okay, and you're one of the first ones you did.
One of the first videos that went viral
Interesting.
was, what do I do if someone doesn't pay? We're in the middle of a pandemic. People have been hearing all over the news, all over everywhere, how no one's paying rent. This is going to be ridiculous. And my first step was to breathe. Chill. The person didn't pay. It is not this personal attack on you. They're not saying you're a crappy person and I'm trying to hurt you and hurt your pockets. They didn't pay. Just like sometimes people don't pay at restaurants. Just like sometimes people sneak into movies. Just like sometimes people don't pay for hotel drinks they stole, right? Sometimes people don't pay.
Like my full set of Denny's flatware and mugs.
And there are systems set up to deal with people who don't pay. I have evicted people, and I will say I feel grateful that out of all the people I've evicted, only one left it in bad condition, and that was really just how they lived. I don't think they were purposely saying, I'm trying to tear up your place. Out of maybe the 6 people I've evicted, 4 left it cleaner than I did. And part of that was at no point was I in your face yelling and screaming at you. At no point was I disrespecting you. It was like, hey, you've done something or you haven't paid, and therefore this relationship can't continue. So I'm going to go through this process, but understand this is why it's happening. And so when people say the bad, it's really, and maybe it's coming from the public school system, but it's really like, what is bad?
Yeah.
I've had
Different
one
degrees.
tenant get belligerent, and I removed myself. It's like, I don't.
What, yelling at you?
Yeah, like yelling, screaming, and it was like, okay, I'm going to remove myself. This is not a healthy situation right now. And I left. And so when people think of bad, I just don't know what they're expecting. Yes, people don't pay. Yes, people can get, and I removed myself. One time, they were like, if tenants get into a fight, what do I do? I was like, you call the cops.
Yeah.
I can't help.
Right.
I'm not able to do these things.
Yeah.
But
Yes, it's awkward. We should get that out too. Yes, it's awkward.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to tell someone like, I have to get you removed from this space if you're not going to leave.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to change the locks if you don't leave. Yeah.
But there's also a process. So I also, as a tenant, as a tenant, I can't just walk in your space and just change the locks. That's also not going to happen either.
Yeah.
So there's a level of respect. Here's
Sure.
and I'm very upfront. Here's what the process is. These are your dates. Here are your timelines. Do you? If we get to 35 days and you're still here, the sheriff will come. And that's what this process is. Mm-hmm. But even with evictions, even with non-payments, even with abandonments, I have not felt bad. Or I've not felt like it was like, this is negative and that's why I have to get out of this business.
Have all of your evictions been for non-payment versus behaviors? Because I think I don't know that this is factual, but at least half of the evictions I have heard about, been a part of, has to do with breaking the terms of the lease, not paying the rent. Because I don't think anybody rents.
That's what happened to me.
I don't think anybody rents planning to not pay. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I have a lot of empathy when I have sellers coming to me going, our life changed and we can't make our mortgage payments. We've been trying for a year and now we're 3 months behind.
Yeah.
And it's our job to help them out of that.
Yeah.
And so I think I feel similarly about renters and tenants. Like, I think many of them really, truly are trying. They're at an income level where one flat tire changes their whole dynamic.
Yes.
And I can have a lot of empathy for that. Most of the folks that I've been asked to help evict, it really has to do more with behaviors.
Yeah.
For me, it was straight up lying. It was someone who said that we're going to do female counseling, and it ended up being a nail salon. And the place was not set up for the fugues for a nail salon.
Yeah.
So that was straight up lying because the ventilation wasn't there, and the ventilation is an issue for a business like that.
Yeah.
So that was like you said, a terms of the lease violation.
Terms of the lease.
Yeah. Any thoughts you want to throw on this?
Well, so I think one of the key factors to think about that is that as an investor, you're responsible for having some reserves. Whether it's because you need a new roof, which really you should have planned way ahead for, because it's not like that should surprise you unless an act of God happens, right?
Oh my God, the roof
That's
is 35 years old?
Oh no.
I mean,
right?
I was.
So it's not,
because it was my first property, but like I feel
yes. Okay, I get it. Okay, be surprised once, but that's it as far as roofs go, okay? No more of that. But then you should. It's your responsibility. That is part of the give and take, and part of we're working together. You should have some reserves for that.
And going off of what Quinton said earlier, the law is different for non-payment versus lease violation, at least in the residential space, right? Non-payment is 5 days before we can go to court, at least in Virginia. For lease violations, it's 21. And I have to give you, I need you to fix this thing that you did on this day. And if you can fix that, then I can't move forward.
And it's written notice.
Yeah, it's written, delivered.
It can't just be talk over the phone.
It has to be written down so it's very clear. It's like, you did this on this day. I need you to fix this. My most recent behavior was dogs, right? I have studio apartments. It was a converted motel. And dogs were not allowed at all. But then I found out he had 2 80-pound pit bulls. And it's
Get out of town.
It's like, this space is not set up. And then he had also moved in his girlfriend, and she was pregnant. And it's like, so I also have an occupancy issue here because these are only allowed to be occupied by 2 people because it's a 1-bedroom space. You cannot have 3 people here. So now we have 3 people, we have 2 dogs. I don't know how you're going to rectify it. And maybe there was an issue and she had to move in, but unfortunately it cannot be here. Because insurance-wise, if there's an issue, I'm on the hook because I'm fully aware of what's happening here. But you had 21 days to rectify it, and if you couldn't, then understandably, you have to find another residence. But I haven't had any violence, which is nice.
Right.
I haven't had considering the number of people I rent to, I have not had because you were violent, you had to leave. It's usually dogs or moving people in that we don't know.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So that occupancy, was that a city or county regulation, or was that, okay.
It was a county regulation.
And you know what that is.
Yeah, 2
because
people
that's
per
important.
bedroom. Yep. So we can't have a 1-bedroom with 5 people. No matter if you guys are cool with it, I understand that, but legally I cannot do that. And my insurance policy also states that as well.
Says that.
You've got to know those things.
Quinton, what do you want to do here? We got we have a ton of questions
We are-
left here.
we
I
are
think we're up
so
against
far
the,
over time.
Yeah, and this guy has to prepare for
know.
12:30. We should do this again. I can
I would love
archive
to bring
the
them back.
questions.
I would love to bring them back and we can play round table.
Yeah. Is that how you want to play it?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Maybe we do a final word, and since you're so well-spoken and we're springing this on the ladies here,
Oh my
why don't we
gosh.
give them a second to think of the final word before we go, and you go first. Final word on anything?
I just think, we're coming out of the pandemic. It's, in a lot of ways, we've hit a reset button. Things economically are changing as the government switches from one kind of financial aid to another, and whether the news in your world is really good or really bad, you have an opportunity to grab a hold of this and make a plan and take control of your life. Nothing in anything you heard here today mattered where we were in the economy, because 6 years spread here, very different economies. If you really, really want to make a difference, it's totally within your grasp. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. Don't be afraid to ask about the words you don't understand. And if worse comes to worse, I have a property investor coach on one side of me and a really good real estate agent on another. They will happily help you figure this out and make a plan and move forward.
Absolutely.
Do you want me to go?
Final word?
I will say that what helped me was questioning what I was doing on a regular basis. Was saying that even though this is maybe what I was taught, this is maybe where my culture has prepared me to be, my education has prepared me to be, it is okay to question if I'm actually really happy in this space. And if you are, there are ways to leverage those spaces. And if you aren't, there are ways to strategize to get to somewhere else. Once I started questioning about what was possible and getting out of my own sphere of influence is when I realized how much I could do on my little salary and my low credit score and my tiny network, and that has only gotten bigger. So,
Well said.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'll stop later.
And how about and someone wants to know the book again.
Rich Dad Poor Dad by
Yeah.
Robert
Yes.
Kiyosaki.
Okay.
The quadrant part of that is like,
The Cash Flow Quadrant,
Yes,
which is his second
yes.
book, which is also great.
that's true, yeah. Oh, so, okay. I would say if you want it, go for it. Make a solid plan, but get out of your own way. Whatever it is, whether you want to be an investor, whether you want to get in real estate, whether you want to be a teacher and find another way to supplement your income so that you can afford to be a teacher, because that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Just make a plan. Get to it. Do something. Just do something. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what, you have a lot of tremendous fans in this community. Kelly Carver, definitely one of the best realtors I know, not only because of her attention to detail, but her gifts with regard to risk assessment. Also, she invests heavily into her clients.
Oh, that's
Nikki is amazing,
Yes,
and I
I do.
cannot recommend her enough.
I love my people.
Yeah.
Because that's what they are. They're my people.
This is don't tell Keith this, but this is the longest real talk we've ever done. Okay?
Keith, I hope you're watching.
This is literally the longest one. You see the time?
It's all about size, and ours is bigger than yours.
This is the longest real talk we have ever done. This was
I did
refreshing
see the
and
time.
phenomenal.
That's why I'm getting quieter. 'Cause, normally I talk more than this.
Yeah, well, because I'm sure you're loaded with meetings right now, aren't you? Okay, he is. We got to go. Okay. This is Real Talk. He's Quinton Beckham. He put this roundtable together. It sounds like this roundtable may happen again. These ladies are absolutely amazing businesswomen and inspiration and a sounding board with how you could do it yourself. If you've learned anything from this show, it's read, absorb information. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And as Nikki said, just do it. Just start. Just do it. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk, presented by Yes Realty Partners and the Yes Team Realtors. We will see you in 38 minutes for the I Love CVille show. Take care, guys. Bye. Good job, ladies. I tried to tag you with as many stuff as possible, but one thing